Parshas Bechukosai from Shabbos Mevorachim Sivon Tafshin Lamed Gimel. Like most of my Marim in the Dvar Malchus this year, it was from Tafshin Lamed Gimel, 1973. It says in this week's Parsha, "Betahallachti betוככם, I will travel and I will go amongst you, Gomer, etc. Va'oilech eschem kamemius, and I will lead you upright." And like he's going to explain, Kaima is going on great heights. In the pasuk, this pasuk that it says, when it speaks about what happens when the Yidden will follow Torah mitzvahs, Bola Achre Mashakasav, a pasuk lifnei is that it follows what it says in the pasuk prior to this. It says, "V'nasati mishkani b'soichem," that says, "I will place my dwelling amongst you and within you." Then move on. What it says in the pasuk, that I will place my dwelling within you. That's not the ultimate level yet. Therefore, he adds after this an even higher thing. And what's that higher thing? I will travel amongst you. That is the next stage. In other words, there's stage one, where it will be v'salachti b'soichem, and stage two, it's going to be, stage one, v'nasati mishkani b'soichem, and stage two is going to be even greater. It's going to be v'salachti b'soichem. Now the Rebbe is going to ask, how can we say that that should be considered a greater thing? It says, we need to understand, how is it possible to say, how can we say this idea that I will go amongst you, that's the idea of traveling, is higher, that I will place my dwelling place amongst you. The approach of the Rebbe over here is going to be that when you talk about traveling means that Hashem Kaviyachol is not settled down. Whereas a dwelling place, that means I moved in over here. I live over here. So seemingly, traveling could be less than mishkani, than dwelling. But we're not saying that. We're saying it's building on it. First it says nasati mishkani. First I will dwell, and then it says I will travel. Travel seems to be less. And he's going to bring proof that we see in other places where traveling is considered less than actual residing. So he says in line 10, the idea of traveling, in other words, that Hashem was not yet settled, was specifically in the Mishkan and not the Beis HaMishkan, Mikdash. The Mishkan was a traveling Mikdash. It was because the Yidden are not yet settled. And in a similar vein, we're saying Hashem traveled in the Mishkan. Like it says in the pasuk, that I will be traveling in the oil and in the Mishkan, the tent and in the Mishkan. So Hashem's approach and relationship with the Mishkan was like someone that's traveling. The Hoya Diras Arai was considered a temporary home, a temporary dwelling. Lamata Beis HaMikdash Diras Kva, which the Mishkan is considered lower than an established and set home, which was the Beis HaMikdash was considered an established home. So therefore, one would think that the pasuk should first say, "V'salachti b'soichem," I will go amongst you, which indicates the lower type of relationship, the level of a relationship like a traveler, and a higher relationship is mishkani. I will live over there. As opposed to what it says in our parsha, it says, "I will place my mishkan amongst you. I place my dwelling amongst you." So the Rebbe says, even though it's using the word mishkan, it's not referring to the mishkan as the traveling migdash, but it's actually koyal beis hamikdash. That this pasuk nasati mishkani b'soichem is actually referring to the beis hamikdash. This is both explained in the Medrash known as Teres Kainim, and it's also in Rashi's commentary. Even without the fact that it's explicit in Teres Kainim and Rashi's Pirush, it's also, we must say so from the simple reading of the text that Nasati Mishkani B'Soichem is not referring to the Mishkan, it's referring to the Beis HaMikdash. How? Where the Hashem says, I will place my Mishkan amongst you. Shenamar Sefer Vayikra. It says it in Sefer Vayikra. Where was that said? When was that said? This was in the tent of meeting, it was said. It was said when the Yidden had a Mishkan. Since it says, I will place my dwelling in future tense, we must say that's referring to the Beis HaMikdash that will follow it, that will be an established home, because it says it in the future tense, because we already had the Mishkan. So if I'm saying, I will place my Mishkan amongst you, it must be something more than what they're experiencing now. Therefore, it must say, V'nasati Mishkan B'Soichem is Hashem's promise that the Yidden will have the Beis HaMikdash. Despite that the earlier pasuk that says V'nasati Mishkan B'Soichem is talking about the settled and permanent home of Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash. The Apple became line 20 still in all. We say Shaddai names the Tachas Ha'ilu. This is not the ultimate level. It's not the ultimate ascent. Therefore, he adds after this an even higher thing. I will travel amongst you. How is that traveling amongst you? Which is usually associated with the temporary state of the Mishkan as opposed to the Mikdash being a permanent dwelling. How is V'salachti B'Soichem building on and following V'nasati Mishkani B'Soichem? Second paragraph on the page, line 22. What it says that I will travel amongst you, I will go amongst you. It's connected with and comes as a continuation to what it says prior to this, that you will go, you will travel in my chukim. In other words, there's a quid pro quo. There's a midah keneged midah over here. I know this means avoid the lamata from the telech through the avoid down here below in a way of you shall go and you shall travel. So when we are traveling, we are doing our avoid of Torah mitzvahs in a way of traveling. So then the drawing down from above is also done in a way of I will travel. How do you do it? It's known. All matters that come from above, they are in a way of measure for measure, top of the second page of the Maimer, top of up. Even those things that come from above, not via my inspiration down here below, so we might think, over there, it's not my doing. When it's my inspiration down here below, when the Yisrus is coming as a result of this Yisrus Sata, so I can understand, Midah Keneged Midah, it has to correspond. I am doing things in a certain way, so then from above it comes in a certain way. But if it's something that's coming from above alone, so perhaps my type of avodah has no bearing on whatsoever. The Rebbe says it's not that way. Even when it's coming, there is still a connection with what I'm doing down here below. Even those matters that come from above, not through the inspiration down here below. There needs to be a preparation for this, similar to the matter that comes from above. That of similar to what is written in the Zohar, that Hashem does not reside, does not rest only in a complete, whole, perfect place. What does that mean? That means someone has to prepare the groundwork. Someone has to lay the groundwork. Someone has to make the place ready to receive. We are only making it ready to receive. We're not drawing it down because it's way higher than us drawing it down. But we still have to make the place ready. This means after we effect down here below, that should be a complete, whole, perfect place. a zayin then it comes down from above, the perfection of above. Therefore, even in a case where it's a surustala ela on its own, we still need to do something that is similar to it. Hashem Shlemus is coming down. We need to make a Shlemistic place down here. But going back to our pasuk, the reason why it's b'salachti b'soichachem, why is Hashem traveling amongst you? Because what it says earlier, that was because we traveled in Hashem's chukim. The Rebbe says in line 9, it's known, the examination, this exact language. Why does it say over here, you will go in my chukim? Not in the more common expression used concerning chukim, it says, you will do my chukim, you will observe my chukim, you will guard my chukim. What's this unusual expression of telechu? So he says, "V'gam ma'u omroi telechu." Also, the question is, why does he say you in the plural? You shall go. Seemingly, he could have said this in the singular. Even though the intention in the pasuk was he was addressing the whole Klal Yisrael. I'm sorry, I skipped. Line 13. Like in many commands of the Eibishter. That were said by the giving of the Torah in the singular. Although the intention in this answer was to all Yidden, as opposed to over here, it says, you shall go in the plural. So the Rebbe says, the plural of the telechu is, instead of just the simple meaning that the plural of telechu means to tell you, you as in multiple people are going in the way of the chukim, but rather the plural of telechu is meaning that the halicha is in the way of plural. Telechu means there are many stages, there are multiple stages of halicha. So therefore, the plural word of telechu is indicating the plurality of the traveling. There's two types of hiluk, two types of traveling. Kivish in Zeh. Since the telechu that Eden are going, it says in bechukoyse telechu, is, as we said before, it's a preparation for what it says afterwards. V'hisalachti b'soichechem inigam sham nemar v'hisalachti l'sherabim. Also over there it says v'hisalachti in the plural. Shemoira al shnei minei hiluch. It indicates also two types of traveling. The word v'hisalachti contains in it also the idea of two types of traveling as well, in response to the plural traveling that we have down here. Therefore, also in the conclusion of the topic, it says, I will lead you upright. Mius is also a plural of the word upright. They koimus, which Chazal derive, means that it will be two heights, because it says koimemius, the Rashi says on the pasuk, so it means two heights of the stature of Adam Harishon. We had this also, I believe, in a previous mimer not too long ago. Adam Harishon was 100 amma, and koimemius means twice the height and stature of Adam Harishon. That's 200 amma high. And so this is all the plurality. It starts with telechu plural, continues, the reward will be plural, and v'hisalachti. And in a similar way of the plurality, there is the two heights, which we'll soon explain, is the two types of travels from, or a result of the two types of travels of above. So the Rebbe is going to explain this. What does it mean in our avodah, this concept of traveling? And like always, in many of these Amarim, he speaks about it's the traveling from above to below and below to above, and what that means. Any questions? Line 21. Being in the explanation of this matter is the Bechlolos Avodas Adam in the general service of a person to Hashem. Yeshnam Shnei Haifanim Dam Shocham Al Mailo Lamata Va'alam Al Mata Lamailo. There's the two approaches. There is drawing down from above to below, and there is the ascent and elevation from below to above. And as you can explain this in details and even more detail. This means initially, before we do anything, there has to be amshach that comes from above. Even when the avodah from below is on a person's own steam, it's because of what I am doing, but still in all tzarech ezer v'siyua l'zemel ma'ila. Even if I'm doing it on my own, one is never on their own. One can never do anything independent of Hashem. Like it says, that Hashem tells people, Mi hidimani v'ashalim. Like a rhetorical question. Whoever came before me and therefore and enabled whatever to take place, tell me who it is so I can pay him for that service. Obviously, no one preceded Hashem. And everything that we're doing is because we are powered by Hashem, even if we're doing it by our own energy, but that very energy came from Hashem. So therefore, that's why the beginning of everything is the first thing, the one type of travel of that Hashem gives me. This drawing down, top of page Zion, it's from very high above. There's nothing higher than it. It's coming from so high that it's even beyond the category of place, and therefore it's beyond the category of even using the term lamailo. And it comes down to way down below. That there's nothing lower than it. Even lower than even the category of place. How could something be lower than place? So the Rebbe gives a very interesting insight into the word makai. In a certain way, the word makai, which is 186, is the gematria of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. When? So in other Mamorim it says when you square every one of the letters. Yud Pamim Yud, 10 times 10, Hey Pamim Hey, 5 times 5, B'chulu. And then Vav times Vav, 6 times 6, and then Hey times Hey again. You get to a total of 186, which is the numerical equivalent of Makim, V'lachein Nikra Kadosh Baruch Hu Shem Makim. That's one of the reasons why Hashem is called in Maimorei Chazal, he's called Makim because of this numerical equivalent through this process. As we have in the Haggadah, Baruch HaMakim, Baruch Hu, etc. So we call Hashem Makim. So the Rebbe goes on, from this also came down below the idea of Makim as well. And the fact that there is that Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is the level of Makim. So Yud Kei Vav Kei is the source of physical Makim down here, but its source in the spiritual realms is in Yud Kei Vav. So again, we still didn't explain. So what's below Makim? So the klippos Shem B'nigud Lalakus, but klippos that are in opposition to godliness, Hadeim Lamata Megeder Makim, they're even below the category of place. That's what it means. That which is drawn down from above comes down even to the place of klippos, that it's even lower than the level of makim, and that's as we'll explain later on how this is one type of travel, that the traveling from above comes from a place that's even higher in the category of makim and goes down to a place of klippos which is even lower than the category of makim. We'll explain that. He's going to explain first the idea of Hamshacha and Ha'alah the drawing down from above to below, and the elevation from below to above in the practical Torah mitzvahs. And as usual, the Rebbe will divide it and subdivide it, how this category versus that category, and in every category there's both, and so on. Gimel line 11. Agdim by prefacing these two components of drawing down from above to below and below to above. Yes, nam gamba Torah. In Torah, there's also both aspects of from above to below and below to above. On its own came from above, like it says the very famous pasuk. It's always brought down in Chassidus. I spoke with you from the heavens. It came down from above. And even once it was descended down here, so it left. It's like we always say, the water descended. So you might think that the water descended from a high place to a low place, so it left above. So we say no. It retains its above the world status, even being down here below. It still remains mamish, the words of Hashem. Like it says, behold, my words are like fire. So even the Torah down here below is considered my words of Hashem, and therefore Chazal derived that just like fire is not susceptible to tumah, so too Torah is not susceptible to tumah. A person that's impure and has been in contact with tumah can study Torah, because Torah still maintains that above to below type of status. After the Torah in and of itself comes from above to below, there is what we contribute, what we do. Then there's a person that has to study the Torah. That's from below to above. The study of Torah is from below to above. So that is already in Torah. We find two things: the words are Hashem, the revelation is Hashem, the knowledge is Hashem, and then there's the Yid learning the Torah. That's one matal. Now he's going to break this down that this is two parts in Torah itself. Clause 18 in general, line 18, he says, "How is the difference between the written Torah and the oral Torah? The written Torah comes in the way from above to below. Therefore, a person cannot add or take away anything from the written Torah. Like it says in the pasuk, you should not add to it, should not decrease from it. Behind this means the Torah is something that was not given to a person to affect it in any type of manner, because it comes from above to below. As opposed to the oral Torah, over there, the person can add an increase in Torah. Not only can he, but he has an obligation to. How do you do it? It's known shekol echad misrael yesh lechelik b'Torah shetzarich lechadish boi. Top of page ches. Every yid has a part of the Torah that he needs to add new insights to. He needs to explain further. To inyan la fashal law. That's what it says, that a person needs to make the Torah grow. He didn't have an obligation to make the Torah grow and increase. That's also what it says. Yagdil Torah v'yadi. You need to increase the Torah and adorn it. So this is the job of us down here below. That's the mamatal mind. Behind this means shinyan shall try to b'shral pehu. The idea of the oral Torah is that a person needs to affect in the Torah from below to above. So up till now we explained that the two aspects of Torah from above to below and below to above, that's the difference in the written and the oral Torah. He's going to go further and say how you can find these in both, the above and below to above, both in the written and in the oral. Line 3, but more specifically, in each one of these two aspects of the written and the oral Torah go for themselves. They're both lines and approaches of above, from above to below, and below to above. Also in the written Torah, there's the idea that a person could increase in it through his avodah from below to above. Even in the oral Torah, which is all about the person's chidushim and so on, and learn all, there are aspects that are beyond the person that are untouchable, as we'll soon explain. But first, let's show where in the written Torah there's something that a person can add through his avodah. What part of the written Torah can a person add to? So he says in line 10, the Torah should be in the written Torah. In addition to the idea, you should not increase, you should not detract. Yes, everything that a diligent student is in the future going to bring a new insight was said to Moshe in Har Sinai. What does it mean? What's the new insight? The new insight is referring to the meaning in the pasuk in the Torah. It's referring also when he's mechadish in the explanations of the written Torah, whether he's mechadish at beside in the secret part of the Torah, whether beremes, whether in the hints part of the Torah, whether drush, even when it comes to the literal reading of the pasuk, how can I add to the literal meaning of the pasuk? He's going to give an amazing concept. He's going to say like this: like the Rashbam, who was Rashi's grandson, and also wrote a commentary on the Torah. And the Rashbam said, in contrast to Rashi, that I came to really explain the Pshat of the Torah, even more so than my grandfather. And not only that, but he brought this up with his grandfather Rashi, and he discussed with his grandfather Rashi the simple meaning of the text. And the Rashbam writes about his conversations with his grandfather Rashi about explaining the simple meaning of the text. Shahoida loy Rashi, that his grandfather Rashi admitted to him. The ilu hoya loy pnai, if Rashi would still have the time, hayatzadich lasis pirushim acherim, Rashi would have to make new commentaries, other commentaries. Lefi hapashtus hamiskadshim b'chol yoyim, according to the simple meaning of the text that is every day coming new. So it's a very interesting way how the Rebbe is looking at this. It's not that Rashi is saying, well, my understanding of the Pshat of the Torah was incorrect, and what I wrote X amount of years ago is not the real Pshat of the Torah, but I should be writing a new Pshat now because I have now other insights as to what is Pshat. But the expression is that I have to write new Pirushim, other Pirushim, according to the Pshat that is every day there's a new insight in Pshat. It's very interesting. It doesn't mean that the old Pshat is wrong. That's not Pshat, which is very interesting. Pshat is seemingly Pshat. That's a simple meaning. And yet, that's the meaning of Talmud Vasik Asid Lachadish, that a diligent student, every generation, every time he has to be Mechadish, not just in Soid, not just in Remes, not just in Drush, but even in Pshat. So we see that you have in Torah Shebiksav things that come on Matal Maila. I remember seeing in a similar vein that I've been talking about it recently about Pesach Sheni. So he's explaining over there how every single year we read about Pesach Sheni, we talk about Pesach Sheni. That means every single year there must be new lessons and new things that we could derive, which is like similar to the Remes and Drush of what it says in the pasuk. And the Rebbe says, therefore, I'm going to tell you something like new lessons and things that we haven't spoken about before. For thousands of years, we're already reading and telling over the story of Pesach Sheni, but it's not the same. Okay, we'll stop over here.